Greetings traders, this is Houston Trong from the tradingedge.org, and here is your weekly market outlook for December the 9th to the 13th, 2019. And as you can probably hear from my voice, I'm a bit under the weather. So in this week's video, I'm going to try to keep things a bit brief to, of course, save my voice, but also to save your ears from having to listen to me struggle through the usual weekly market outlook. So we'll try to keep things brief today, and I'll go over the major points. So for the coming week of the 9th to 13th, it is expected to be a pretty busy news week. So we do have FOMC on Wednesday, so a lot of people will be looking out for that. Then we have the jobless claims on Thursday and retail sales on the Friday. So those will be interesting numbers to watch, because this past Friday, the employment numbers came out and they were gung-ho to the upside. So, very, very low levels of unemployment, seasonally low. So that was exceptionally good news for the market, and the market took that and ran with it. And we saw the markets really take off to the upside after having a bit of a weak start in the week. So with that being said, let's launch in the charts now. We'll talk about the week that was, and then we'll cover the coming week. As always, I'll start with the VIX chart, and I'll spend a little more time there, but then the rest of the charts pretty much look the same, albeit in the mirror, it's mirror opposite. So this past week, the VIX, well, if you recall from last week's video, the VIX had already popped up two sessions in a row at the end of last week. So let's zoom in here. Actually, let's start at the high level. Right now, even with that big pop this past week in the VIX, it's still inside month, right? So it's still inside the previous month's range. That's just an inside month. This week we had a break to the upside, but they definitely sold it back into the range again. Remember that gap that we drew last week? That was going to be one that was going to get filled quite quickly, and we drew that in there, and it got filled early on in the week. So we have a green week, albeit now looking like a shooting star. So that gap got filled pretty much immediately on Monday, right? So here it was a continuation move on Monday, and it continued till Tuesday. Then Wednesday they gapped it down, and they basically sold it off for the rest of the week. But that Monday, it filled that gap there, and I believe there's another, no, there's no more gaps up there. So was there a gap up here? No, that wasn't a gap there. So we had a gap up here, but that's already closed. So they just basically jammed to the upside. They took out the stops, and then they pulled it back down to the lows again, although not quite breaking below the monthly open. So the monthly open's right there. We have that orange line right there indicating the monthly open, and they could not break it back below there. So this coming week, when it opens up, we want to watch and see whether or not it continues to be a green month or not. Because even though the month is still early and it's still an inside month, it's significant, and we want to be watching whether or not price is able to stay above that monthly open. So wherever we open up on Monday, then we're going to be watching that. There's that unfilled gap now here at 1733. So let's see how we trade around that on Monday. So on the 4-hour chart, this kind of explains a lot. And if you recall what I talked about, and it'll become even more apparent on the SPY chart. But we were looking for, let's take a look here, something that was going to get people shaken out. And typically that's going to involve outside bars, because you're going to open up on one side and take out one side's lows, and then go all the way to the other side and take out the other side's lows, or highs, excuse me. And that's what we saw on the SPY. Not quite on the VIX, because the VIX was a continuation move. If you recall, as I said already, it started off last Thursday. So last Thursday did this inside bar down, inside bar. There's your Friday. It goes inside bar reversal, then inside bar on the final 4 hours of that session last Friday, not this past Friday, but 2 Fridays ago. Then on Monday, immediately, boom, it's an inside bar and up again. So that's kind of what marked that buying, is this one here. It broke to the upside and went inside bar up. But this is the reversal here. Inside bar down, inside bar. So inside bar reversal to the upside. This is the reversal that starts this move up here. Now, on Wednesday, it does this. Here, the final inside bar of the day. Goes inside. Then on Thursday, opens up outside bar. Looks quite bearish, right? On Thursday, it goes outside bar, takes out this high, but then Thursday afternoon it goes inside bar. Then you have inside, inside, and power to the downside. Wipes out all those guys who went long in that sequence, except for guys who have their stops down here. So they're still hoping, if you're long here, you're hoping it doesn't break below here, right? Because then this puts this entire range in play. So the SPY now looks very, very similar to that in terms of the 4-hour sequence. But on the bigger picture, here's the SPY. Great. So on the big picture, outside bar up and inside bar. Now look how nice this broadening formation, this upper trend line, has now become support. So we talked about this, broader broadening formation pattern in the past. Check out the videos. And once it got above there, you do not want to see it come back into the range again, if you're a buyer, that is, because if it can break back into the range, it could potentially come out the other side. So this past week, it broke to the downside, but look, it honored that broadening formation's resistance level, which now has become support. So broken up, became support now. Inside month still on the SPY. On the week, we did get that break to the downside on the week, but they bought it back right away. And now look, it closed above that orange line, which is the monthly open. So we had a down move that took out all these stops, right? So, and see the low here. Low was 307.27, 307.13. So very, very nice break. It was able to take out all these lows here. And so anyone who got long in this sequence and put their stops there, got wiped out there before markets drove back higher. These are the kind of breaks that allow markets to move higher because all the short-term and week longs have now been liquidated or stopped out, and this allows stronger buyers to come in and then push markets higher. This is now closed as a momentum hammer, so quite bullish, very, very bullish. So on the daily chart, you already saw what that looks like on the VIX chart. But just one thing to point out here: if you recall in last week's video, the question was, if they can break below the 8 EMEA, that's that blue line, that's what we were asking. When and how do they break below the EMEA? And when they do, will they be able to test the 20? And that happened on Tuesday. So here on Monday, it closed below the 8. Okay, so that's the first time it happened before that. Before that period there, before that, it had not happened all the way back here, right? So you had to go back a while. On Tuesday, it broke below the 8, closed below the 8, and even closed below the 20. So that's your 20 MEA. That's the line that I was looking for and saying, can sellers now close it below the 20 and break that 20 period moving average? They did close below, right? But look what happened the next day on Wednesday. They bought it back immediately. It gaps up. If you get short down here, you're stuck, right? They gapped up significantly, well, enough that you're going to get squeezed for most of the session, and they did not come back. So now you have an unfilled gap there. So we'll mark that on our charts in green. But anyone who got short there is now underwater. So they squeeze them for the rest of the week, because now if you did not cover on this day, on Tuesday, that's looking like a pretty cheap price to cover now compared to up here, right? Because you're now getting really close to all-time highs again. And where's your stop, right? So if you got short down here, where are you putting your stop? That's your last line in the sand. Otherwise, you're going to be, there is no telling how far this can go, and then you're really going to get squeezed. So if they did not, if you got short in this sequence, or anyone who got short in this sequence, they either got stopped out, or they're really hoping it doesn't take out that level. Because if it does, you got another leg up here, and the guys who are short down here and who did not cover, they're really going to get squeezed. So this is what you want to see if you're a buyer. They defended very quickly, meaning the buyer stepped up right there, they gapped it up, and they kept going. And so they were not able to break below the bar that closed below the 20, right? So this violated the 8 because it closed below the 8, and then it broke below the 8, that bar that pierced the 8, or that closed below the 8. Here, it closed below the 20, but could not take out that bar that closed below the 20, could not take out that low. In fact, it went the other way. So on the 4-hour chart now, and we don't need to get into the details for the rest of the indices, but they look like this. This is the outside move I was talking about that traps people, right? So this is what happened on Monday. Small, slight gap up on the SPY. I think it was less than 25 basis points on the SPY. A really, really tiny gap up, but just enough to get people excited to the long side for them to get smashed the other way. So this is what you're looking for to trap people, is you open on the upside on a small gap and you immediately sell it. And this turns into an outside and down. So that's an inside bar reversal that goes outside, inside, and then to the downside, right? So inside, inside, one of my favorite patterns. You see many of them, right? And they become significant because you realize the psychology, what's happening inside those bars. Breaks to the downside, and there is that 4-hour break of that 20-day, but they buy it back right away. Look at the strong buying pressure on that 4-hour chart, right? So they bought it back right away on that particular session. Okay, so to make it really apparent, I'm just going to drill down one final time. We'll look at it on the 60-minute chart, because the rest of the week is pretty straightforward, right? Outside, inside, down, they buy it back, outside, inside, and up, squeeze everyone, and now really close to all-time highs. But the 60 really, I think, tells the picture here, right here. So here's the day where it breaks to the downside. There's your Monday, breaks below the prior week's low, so right here. So here's the Monday, right? So traps the longs, goes inside bar up, traps the longs, goes outside bar, right? And then consolidates right at the prior week's low. That's the purple line there. And then momentum move, outside bar and down. So it looks like they're going to buy it back. It goes inside, inside, and up. Then all of a sudden, the last at 2:30 or 2 o'clock on Friday, Monday, it goes outside bar and down. Momentum move down here. So momentum to the downside, but unfortunately for the sellers, that's all they had, because then it goes down, inside, inside. So that means it's now a stalemate, and the buyers win that stalemate because they break it to the upside, and then they trap some sellers by going down first, and then going up. Then it's outside and up, right? And then that's momentum to the upside, and it's gone. So that's the way you can frame that price action once you see it in these 1 hour bars. So for the 4 hour, back to the 4 hour, you basically want to see how it breaks again this coming Monday. We have an inside bar to end the Friday session on the final 4 hours. So which way does it break on Monday? Qs, a little faster speed now. So same picture, outside up and inside on the quarter. Also defended that broadening formation, still sitting on that top of that broadening formation. Same thing on the weekly chart. Look, momentum bar right there. They bought it back very, very aggressively. So they, it was down here, all the way down here, stopped everyone out in the sequence, right? And then they bought it right back again, close once again to all-time highs. And the 4 hour chart, as we said earlier, very similar picture. Inside bar down, down. They bought it right back right away, pop back to the upside. Russell now. Okay, Russell, it actually outperformed the SPY and the Qs in the Dow this week. So right now on the monthly chart, looking like it broke above the prior month's range. So the SPY and Qs are still inside month. So Russell getting a little more range, and it actually goes outside bar. So that's how aggressive they were buying it back. So now we have a momentum condition here on the Russell, because here it broke below the prior week's lows and then actually closed, or not closed, but it did break above the prior week's highs, creating the outside bar. So you really want to see now what's the next bar for Russell. Outside up, that's momentum. Outside inside, it's consolidation. Outside down, obviously that's momentum to the downside. Okay. On the daily chart, same picture. Okay, hit that 20 EMEA right there. That acted as support on the Russell. That coincides with that weekly low, the prior weekly's low right there. That held, then they closed above it again and back to the upside, and look what you see here. So that's a newer high, right? So that's why we know there's a higher high than last week's high. So we get that outside bar. So that creates the outside bar on the weekly chart, and Russell went into those recent highs. Now, let's talk about Dow. Okay, Dow very similar to SPYs and Qs. Outside bar up, inside bar, broadening formation acting as support. On the week, it is a nice big hammer. So it is a red week though, did not close green, and it's still trading below the monthly open, but above the quarterly open there. But they've definitely bought it back because they wiped out everyone who had stops here. Okay, so a nice liquidity break there and stopped everyone out. And on the Dow, just like we saw here on the 4 hour chart, very similar pattern. Okay, so very similar, inside outside, inside to the upside. Here you definitely want to watch on the Dow here, because on Friday went momentum up because it went outside bar on Thursday. Looked a little bit bearish because it stayed red, but this negates this entire move. It negates the significance of a red outside bar, because that's all it takes to do that, right? When you have a bar that goes like that, and it gaps up and then it squeezes the longs, the shorts all day, that is, a bullish kicking pattern. And we've talked about this many times, but that's the bullish kicking pattern. And look where that kicking pattern happens, on top of that broadening formation. So if you don't know broadening formations, then this is this is why it's so important to understand them, because that's the way that markets move. They move in broadening formations. We'll see it again on TLT. I'll show it to you on the TLT contract just in a few moments. Let's talk about TSX now. TSX. Okay, still inside month on TSX, red month. Still not far from those all-time highs, but still a red month. Also a broadening formation type of pattern playing out. Okay, you're on top of that broadening formation now, meaning you really, if you're a buyer, this level kind of needs to hold, otherwise you can risk a deeper pullback. Okay, the week, they did sell it, but they did buy it back. Not quite as aggressively as stateside, but it did end the week as a hammer, but trading below the monthly open. Okay, and so on the TSX, just watch this here on the 2-day chart. On the 2-day chart, you have this situation here. Now you got outside bar, because on the daily chart, okay, so these two bars are outside of that bar and that bar. So on a 2-day chart, it creates the outside bar, and so now you have a potential momentum move. So you want to see, how does it break the range of this outside bar? Outside bar up, if that's the case, we could be going back to outside, all-time highs very, very quickly. Outside inside consolidation, outside and down, perhaps for a formal test of that broadening formation support. Let's look at EEM now. Emerging markets starting the month green, so still a green month for emerging markets. They broke it down a bit, but not that much. It did break below the prior month's lows, but they bought it back right away, looking like right now it's still a lot of month left. But prior month shooting star, this month bullish hammer, but still a lot of month left. Keep watching that. Weekly chart, they broke below the prior week's lows, but they bought it back again. All right, so green week for the EM, and a decent week, up 1.25%. And so on the 4-hour chart, let's look at this. Okay, so here to end the prior week, right? So we go inside bar, reversal to the downside, and it breaks down. Okay, it breaks down here on Monday. Okay, here's your Monday. And then here, inside bar and down. So there's your Tuesday, and they buy it back here on the Tuesday afternoon session. They break above the AM high, and that creates the inside bar down, reversal to the upside. That means immediately they're going after that pivot and all these pivots. And now you have an unfilled gap right there. It's getting very close to filling that. So that's the action you can be looking for when you see these breaks, to see if they actually have any continuation or not. Once this happens, inside bar down, looks bearish, right? Very bearish. But as soon as this happens and you have that situation, okay, that's inside reversal, and you have to really watch out if you're short there. Let's look at TLT now. Okay, so TLT, very, very choppy sequence here. So very tight stuff. Currently a green month, but we're well near the lows of the month. It did break above the prior month's highs, but the sellers hit it, and now we're trading back in November's range. So on TLT, this is the kind of week it was. So here, very, very nice sequence in terms of price action, because we know that this outside bar here the high was probably going to get tested at some point. It goes outside bar and down, right? We've been talking about this pattern for a while. Outside bar down, inside bar. Once it breaks the upside, that pivot high is very likely to get taken out. The only question was, can it get taken out and will it keep going? Because you have the monthly and you have the quarterly acting as resistance. And up until last month, right at the end of November, that monthly open had acted as resistance. So you can see it came close to touching it there. It came back down. It did break through there, hit the quarterly open there, and it came back down. This week, it actually opened lower. It popped up just enough to do what? Yes, take up that high, because people know their stops there. So a high there was 141.68. The high here, 141.77. Right, so 9 cents comes up and stops everyone who's a short that sequence. Okay, so that guy's high, it's higher than that one, and so the creates, what do you see it? That's actually a broadening formation. So how you can visualize is this way. If we go on the 4-hour chart, okay, so here, this is on Monday, it gaps down, it goes inside bar, it gaps up, inside bar reversal as soon as it takes out that low there. It's an inside bar reversal back to the downside. Okay, so this low here, 137.96. That low there, 137.91. That's a lower low than that. That's a higher high than that. To make it really apparent what I'm talking about, 60-minute chart. So here's the monthly open. If you don't believe that the monthly open is significant, look at how price transacts at those levels. Monthly open, it gaps to the downside this week, right? We know that on Monday. And then it pops up. Okay, up, up, up. This high here is enough to take out all those recent highs, right? So what do we know about that? Well, that high there is higher than that high. Now, as it starts coming back through the range again, where do you think it's going? Right? So we already know how this plays out, but where do you think it's going? Yes, it's going out the other side. It's going to create a lower low because that's just where the volume is. So we can now draw it as such. This low here is lower than that low there. Okay? So that's how you understand that price action sequence. Just a price discovery mechanism looking for where there's pockets of liquidity. As you can see, this first hour of the trading day, look at the volume elevated because it stopped out everyone that was there, right? So they bought it back again, and it could still go lower here, but the job was done in the sense that that low got tested, it stopped everyone out there, and now the market's back doing price discovery to find out where there's pockets of liquidity. So very, very nice sequence there, and that pattern on the weekly chart finally resolved itself by taking out that outside bar high back from this is the month of not mistaken, out of the way, yeah, back at the end of October. So that finally got taken out. So question is, does it have any juice left to the upside? You now have the situation now where TLT is trading in between the quarterly and the monthly open. So you got this potential now for this thing to get really choppy if you stay in between these two areas. Okay, which is it's going to be range trading because frankly you're trading inside of November's range. So there's definitely a risk on a type of environment in the second half of the week, and this causes things like TLT and gold to basically not carry a lot of favor with investors and traders. So GLD had a nice little pop in the beginning of the week, but they basically sold off in the latter half. So GLD, just to give you the bigger picture once again, outside, up, and inside quarter so far. Lots of quarter left over. Well, not a lot of quarter left over. It's like a good 2.5 trading weeks left. And so you're really stuck inside a range now. So on the monthly chart, right, you're sitting inside November's range, and this doesn't look like there's a high probability chance you're getting outside November because it's very tight trading right now with GLD. And so you can just see the chop that you're getting inside this here. It's going back and forth, and the ranges are very, very tight. You can just see by things like the Bollinger Bands on the weekly chart, right? They're compressing. It's compression going on there. So you have a pop to the upside, but it ends up trading and closing below the quarterly open, but above the monthly open. So very, very tight stuff here. This could get very choppy if it stays in that range. On the daily, you can just see the Bollinger Bands. I'll draw your attention to that. It's getting tighter and tighter. So expect more and more range compression, contraction, and maybe a final breakout once the markets either give a big burst to the upside or a real solid signal to the downside, perhaps in Q1 of 2020. So basically, I just call this chop. On the weekly chart, that's all you need to see. This is chop, right? You do not really want to get involved in this stuff here because it is a situation where there's easier pickings elsewhere. Why try to fight this tight range stuff when there's stuff that's actually moving and trading well? So let's talk about Bitcoin, digital gold for some. Let me bring up the Bitfenix chart. Okay, BTC. Give me 1 second here. I want to bring all the. I'm going to bring in all the other. Okay, bring in the Binance. Okay. So here's BTC USD on Bitfenix, just to make sure you know the exchange I'm using, so that you may have different market data or different numbers, but the chart patterns generally look the same. So for BTC USD here now, it was and is a consolidation week. So onto the higher time frame, you have a bearish signal still. So still the bias is the short side, even though you're having some pops to the upside. The bias is still short because you're trading with full time frame alignment, except for the weekly open to the downside. So look, inside and down on the quarterly chart. The break on that quarterly chart was the prior week's quarter's low, 77.33. Mark that area because price has not been able to stay above that. So right now that break to the downside is still in effect on the quarterly chart. The monthly chart, inside month. It's going to be hard for Bitcoin to break outside of the prior month's range. We had a good 17% month move there on November. Now you're sitting right, in the into the lower half, but definitely the lower, thirds of that chart. So sitting inside month so far, and this week very tight stuff inside week. Okay, so very, very tight trading right now inside week, but trading below quarterly open and monthly open. So the bias needs to be low. The only thing that it's doing on the daily chart here is that it traded for a few days, currently right now as well, between the weekly open, which is the orange purple line, and it's below the monthly open and the quarterly open, that blue line. So you have these mixed time frames, and this is why you have this tight stuff, right? So you have these really, really tight ranges now. And as I said before, that 77.33 area, that's the prior quarter's low. You can see price testing it and not able to break higher. Here's another test there, right? This past, what was that? That was on Tuesday. We had that big move on cryptos because one trader moved a lot of cryptos or Bitcoin. It caused the markets to all move together. But since then, they faded it, and now look, it went inside bar and up. Possible now inside bar reversal back to the downside. Not a very, very clean one, but if you look at the 2-day chart, a little cleaner. So 2-day chart right now, outside inside, right? So outside inside, creating a slight higher high here. So if this breaks below here, that can be an inside bar reversal in the 2-day chart back to the downside. That could put you in full time frame alignment back to the downside. So right now the bias remains to the downside for Bitcoin. Now, ETH USD, so Ethereum, same situation, even a little bit more bearish. This would be a good continuation trade. So here, just to give you the bigger picture, and then we'll begin to wrap things up. On the 3-month chart, very similar to Bitcoin, it goes inside bar and down on the quarter. Monthly right now, inside month, but it goes inside month, down, inside right now, so consolidating. Now on the weekly chart, it's inside week, so very, very tight stuff. Not the kind of week where you're seeing a lot of movement. It's consolidating right there, but near the lows, right? So here, if anyone thinks that the trend is up right now, they're looking at a chart that I'm not seeing. This chart is going down, and unless something very unexpected happens, the price itself is telling you the trend is downwards. So inside week, you definitely want to see how this week gets resolved. Is it inside week and down, and inside week and up? And you might be able to trigger that inside week low. So I'll just draw it in here. We'll draw in the prior week's low here. Let's change colors on that. We'll make it purple. So look at the 2-day chart. Okay, so the week's low, and again, we do have a little more than 24 hours left of trading in this week for cryptos. But if price stays inside this range until the new week, then you have a very, very nice setup where you have an inside bar break to the downside would trigger the break of the inside week. So this is a very, very nice trade setting up to the short side. Less to the long side because you don't have full time frame alignment. Yes, it could pop to the upside here. You still have to contend with that monthly open and the quarterly opens up here. If it breaks to the downside, that'd be my preference because then you have full time frame alignment. There's no questions which way this thing should go. If it breaks to the downside, if it breaks below that low, they're taking out that pivot. And what do we know about that low? That is the weekly low, right? So then you have a classic inside bar and down on the weekly chart. So that would be a very, very nice setup, and that's one that I'm watching to trigger in the next 24 hours or so. So let's just wrap up now with a few rapid succession stocks, and we'll look at some stocks that have been moving well. If you recall, I pointed out one last week. I think it's been a couple weeks now. Zyme, it finally broke out of its consolidation. I've been talking about the inside. 3 inside weeks in a row. Finally broke the downside this week, down 11% on Zyme. Very nice move on Zyme. APHA, marijuana names. Man, those things look terrible still. But here's a nice pattern developing outside, inside, and inside. Like those cryptos, I would rather see this thing break to the downside just because of the time frames. Here's the quarterly open. Here's the weekly. If it breaks below this week's low, we're coming back down to here. The low of 376. Tesla got an upgrade, but the price didn't move that much. But now setting up a potential nice move because here it was a consolidation week on the monthly open. outside bar down, inside bar, that means momentum is being lost to the downside. If we break above this week's high, we're going back and touching that outside bar high. One more, Apple, just to give you a lay of the land. Apple, what does this look like to you? All-time highs. That is an aggressive chart. Well, aggressive in the sense that it's just going higher and higher, especially since they made that low down here back in last December. Okay, we had a few scares here for Apple investors when it had that. It looks like about a 50% retracement on that move. But since then, it is going to highs, and now it has hit all-time highs. And look at what it did this week. Inside bar, outside bar up. So this is a momentum move because it's called an inside bar reversal using an outside bar. Because the sellers, people got short down here, right? So when it broke below last week's lows, there's folks who got short down here. What happened? It closed near the highs, and they're getting squeezed. So if Apple goes inside, outside, and up, that's momentum on the weekly chart, and you'll want to know that because where Apple goes, the majority of the tech indices will go as well. Let's talk about the even a bigger time frame chart. Let's go to the quarterly chart for a second because there's a few interesting stocks there that weren't paying attention to, and one that I brought to your attention a long time ago. So here, back to Apple, right? It was outside bar and down. I said as soon as you take out that high, you're going out the other side, and that's what it did, right? So it took a few quarters. So this happened way back in Q1. We've been talking about it. Q2, Q3, Q4 took out that high and still going. What else looks like that? Here's a company that you might have heard me talk about. Let's go over to the right charts here. Okay. Restoration Hardware. Man, this thing has been on a roll. Recall Q1 when I said outside bar down. If this high gets taken up, we're coming out through the other side. It took 2 quarters and then some. Look, well, it's gone 2 quarters straight up now. Last quarter, it was up 47%, 48%. This quarter is up another 41%. So major move in the past 2 months, 2 quarters, excuse me. And I just said here, just from here to there alone is a 30% move. This is now turned into a 80% move, nearly a 90% move. So exceptional moves on Restoration Hardware. You can see that thing's going right in the highs. Intel, another interesting name. Similar pattern, outside, inside, and up. So currently working its way back up through the range, back up through this broadening formation. Okay, so keep watching Intel. One more. Baidu has had a bit of selling, but now it's finally popping up. So here now, let me just redraw this broadening formation here. Clean that up a little bit. Okay, so you can see this low here, higher, lower than that low there. Okay. So now, outside bar down in Q4 here, it broke back above there. If it can clear back above there again, you can expect this high to get taken out. It might take some time. This is a quarterly chart, so it's not going to happen this next week. But continue to keep your eyes on BABA because once it breaks above, if it breaks above July's highs or the Q2's highs, there's a chance to come back through this side. It's not going to be a straight shot usually, but again, that's going to be a larger campaign trade. Something to watch out for. Now let's talk about some high flyers and some low flyers to wrap things up. So here's some of the best looking stocks by best and worst looking stocks based upon a modified Sharpe ratio on my watch list. I'll give you 5 that have been looking really good. CRSP. Okay, so CRISPR Therapeutics. Biotech stocks and healthcare stocks on a roll. CRISPR here inside to end the week. Potential pop here into the coming week. INCY. Okay, Insight. Look at that move since October, straight up. Okay, these are yearly highs, so yearly highs. Light. Okay, Lumentum Holdings. Again, a really nice trend that's been on since the mid-October. And one more, Mr. Softy, Microsoft, getting very close again to those all-time highs. So a bit of consolidation in this sequence here, but if you take a step back and look at that weekly chart, man, Microsoft had just been on a tear, right? And it's just grinding higher. Very, very strong tech stock. Okay, let's talk about some of the ones that don't look so good. We already talked about Zine. We talked about that one already. So look at that. Look on that on the daily chart, and that is going into multi-month lows for Zion. Okay, so Zion looking really rough. Picks. So let's talk about the marijuana names. Names like this, PYX. Man, these things have not found a bottom yet. This is all-time lows, I believe, for PYX. Now a $7 stock. NBEV, another former high flyer marijuana name, ran right in the lows. All-time lows now. Okay, so all-time lows on NBEV. Actually, is it all-time lows or multi-year lows? Sorry, multi-year lows, not all-time lows. Multi-year lows, but going right in the lows. Okay, back to the daily chart. Tilray, another marijuana name that has not bottomed yet, and this one here is definitely. I'll just zoom out a bit. Yeah, that one there is all-time lows. So there is no support on Tilray right now. The game is how far can she go? How low can she go? Okay, and let's do one more name and wrap things up. Actually, two more names. Let's talk about Overstock. Another name. How low can it go? Okay, so this thing is not finding. Looks like you may not have any support until this, into the sixes. So right now it ends the week as an inside week, momentum down condition. Look, inside, and it goes up, but turns into an outside bar. So that traps everyone who gets long. Outside bar, and that's meant for the downside. If you don't cover, right? If you get long here, you're like, nah, I'll cover some other, I'll cover when I feel like covering. It's not giving you a chance to get out gracefully. Outside bar down, right? This week here is a 6% loss. That's another 14% loss. That's another 9% loss. So if you did not cover around here, that was looking like a pretty good area to cover, because now you're way down here, and now it's an inside bar. If it goes down even more, yeah, we're going lower. And one last one, Etsy. Since IPO, not having a good year. So Etsy popped up here, and it's been having kind of a rough year now. So now into those lows. Look at the daily chart. Yeah, this last sequence since October, just very weak name. So Etsy, continue to watch that for more weakness. All right, well that's a wrap for this week's video. As always, I hope you enjoyed the video and you get some value out of it. If you do, then please hit the subscribe button. That way you get a notification as soon as it gets posted to our YouTube channel or blog. As well, if you do like the videos, give it a big thumbs up and share with everyone you know, so we can continue to grow the community. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the YouTube comment section or on our blog site, and I do check all the comments. So, as always, I said it a few times already, have a great trading week and happy trading.